These bonus episodes are not just about having a good time, but also about having frank and honest conversations with Pete. He's not afraid to tackle tough topics and have real, honest, frank and authentic discussions about life, love, work, and everything in between. So not only will you be entertained by Pete's signature wit and humor, but you'll also be challenged to think deeply about some of life's biggest questions. And the best part, you can do it all while listening and enjoying Pete's infectious energy. So don't miss out on this exciting new series of Say As It Is with Pete bonus episodes. Subscribe now and get ready to join the conversation. So let's get this episode underway.
Hi everybody, and welcome to this bonus episode. Well, actually, this is a double bonus episode. So I was looking at creating some bonus episodes for my bonus episode series that I have created for you guys. And I did two topics around the same kind of thing. So I decided that because they're around the same topic itself, why not double it up into a bonus episode just for you? So kind of part one and part two. So in this bonus episode, the two things we're going to be covering is one, why gender pronouns matter. And then you'll hear the next podcast, which is tips for using gender pronouns correctly. So double whammy, there was no point of me issuing these two podcasts separately because they really coincide with each other. So I'm not going to say any more. Sit back, listen, turn up the volume, and let's get these bonus or double bonus episodes underway. Welcome to this week's bonus episode of Say As It Is with Pete, and I'm your host Pete, and yes, it's time for another bonus episode within this podcast series as I continue to drop a different bonus podcast on different things. So I am throwing in this topic for this bonus episode called Why Gender Pronouns Matter. Now you're probably going to say, Pete, why are you talking about this topic? Well, do you know what? It's something that I hear in my office. I hear from talking to other L&D professionals and HR professionals and friends and colleagues, and it's all about pronouns. And pronouns are being used more and more nowadays, and there seems to be a lot of misunderstanding, confusion, not knowing what pronouns are, how to use them. There's a whole minefield about pronouns out there. And someone who comes from the LGBTQ plus community, it sometimes can be confusing for me as well. So what I thought I would do is create this little bonus podcast about why gender pronouns matter. So let's not waste any time and crack on. So in recent years, the issue of gender identity has become more prominent in society, and with it, the use of gender pronouns has become an important topic of discussion. So gender pronouns are the words we use to refer to someone's gender, such as he or him, or she and her, or they and them. It may seem a small detail, but using the correct gender pronouns is an important way to show respect for individuals and their identities. So in this podcast episode, we will explore why gender pronouns matter and why it's important to use them and respect them. So let's break these down into little different topics. So I'll go through each one. So the first one is the importance of respecting pronouns. So the first and foremost, using someone's correct gender pronouns is a matter of respect. So when we refer to someone using the wrong pronouns, it can be hurtful and invalidating. It can make someone feel like their gender identity is not being acknowledged or respected. This is particularly true for transgender and gender non-binary individuals who may not identify with the gender they were assigned to at birth. So it's important to remember that using the correct pronouns is not only a matter of courtesy, but it's also a sign of respect for an individual's identity. So by using someone's preferred pronouns, you are acknowledging and affirming their gender identity, which can have a significant impact on their well-being and mental health. So let's look at pronouns and identity. So gender pronouns are closely tied with one's gender identity. So for many people, the pronouns that they use are an important part of their self-identity. The transgender and gender non-binary individuals using the correct pronouns can be a crucial aspect of affirming their gender identity. So allowing individuals to define their own gender identity is an important step towards creating a more inclusive society. So by using someone's preferred pronouns, we are showing that we respect and acknowledge their identity. So let's look at the social and legal implications of misgendering. So misgendering someone, whether intentionally or unintentionally, can have significant social and legal implications. In many countries, discrimination on the basis of gender identity is illegal, and misgendering someone can be a form of discrimination. So misgendering someone can have a social consequence or consequences. It can cause individuals to feel isolated, invalidated, and disrespected. It can also impact their mental health and well-being. So let's look at the use of gender-neutral pronouns. So while most people are familiar with the traditional gender pronouns he, him, she, her, there are also gender-neutral pronouns that can be used to refer to individuals who do not identify as male or female. So for example, a gender-neutral pronoun includes they, them, sie, ze, and they, them. Using gender-neutral pronouns can be an important way to create a more inclusive and welcoming environment for individuals who do not fit into the traditional gender categories. So let's look at how to use and respect gender pronouns. So if you are unsure about someone's gender pronouns, it's important to ask. You can do this in a respectful and non-invasive way by simply asking, what are your pronouns? Or what pronouns do you prefer? When someone tells you their preferred pronouns, it's important to use them consistently. If you make a mistake, apologize and correct yourself, but do not make a big deal out of it. Remember that using someone's correct pronouns is a matter of respect and should be treated as such. So in conclusion, gender pronouns are an important part of our identities, and using the correct pronouns is a critical way to show respect and support to individuals. By using pronouns preferred, or by using someone's preferred pronouns, I should say, you can create a more inclusive, welcome environment for everyone. It may seem a small deal, but it can have a big impact on the lives of the individuals who are transgender. I hope that this podcast has given you a little bit more insight into this topic of why gender pronouns matter. And remember, you can go back and listen to this podcast and any other of the podcasts or bonus podcasts within the Say As It Is with Pete podcast series. And until the next podcast, which is dropped every Monday, keep listening and have a great week. Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's bonus episode of Say As It Is with Pete, as I drop another bonus episode within the Say As It Pete series. So this week's or this topic for this bonus episode is around tips for using gender pronouns correctly. And you're probably thinking, Pete, why did you pick this as a bonus episode? Well, look, as an L&D practitioner and professional, and a HR professional, I hear it all the time. We all seem to be talking about pronouns, and it gets a little bit confusing of how to use them correctly, how to ask them, what to do, what they mean. Pronouns is an absolute minefield at the moment. So I wanted to create this bonus episode where we can look at me giving you some frank, honest tips on using gender pronouns correctly. And hopefully this will help. So without wasting any time, let's crack on. Now, gender identity is a complex and deeply personal part of human experience. It can be challenging to navigate this topic, especially when it comes to using the correct gender pronouns. However, by taking the time to educate ourselves and practicing inclusive language, we can make a meaningful difference in the lives of those around us. So, point one, ask for pronouns. So one of the most important things that you can do to show respect for someone's gender identity is to ask for their pronouns. This can help you avoid making assumptions based on someone's appearance or name. Plus, it shows that you care about creating an inclusive environment where everyone feels welcome. So when you ask for someone's pronouns, be sure to do it in a non-intrusive way. For example, you could say something like, "Hi, what pronouns do you use?" Or you could say something like, "Would you mind sharing your pronouns you prefer?" This shows that you are open to learning about their gender identity without making them feel uncomfortable. It's also important to remember that not everyone feels comfortable sharing their pronouns. So if someone declines to share their pronouns, respect their decision and avoid using gendered language when referring to them. So point 2, use gender neutral language when appropriate. So gender neutral language is language that doesn't specify gender, and it is important, or it is an important way to create a more inclusive environment. So use gender neutral language can help you avoid making assumptions about someone's gender identity, and it can also help to make conversations more comfortable for everyone. So some examples of gender neutral language include using they or them pronouns instead of he, him, or she, her, using folks or people or team members instead of guys or ladies, and using parent or guardian instead of mother or father. By using gender neutral language, you can help create a more welcoming environment for people of all gender identities. So, point number 3, practice using pronouns correctly. So using gender pronouns correctly can be challenging. Even I know that, and I come from the LGBTQ plus community, and it gets confusing for me and challenging. So using gender pronouns, as I said, correctly can be challenging, especially if you're used to using binary pronouns like he, him, or she and her. However, with practice, you can become more comfortable using a range of pronouns. So one way to practice using pronouns correctly is to role play with a friend or family member. This can help you become more comfortable using different pronouns in conversation. You can also use online resources such as Pronoun Dressing Room, which allows you to practice using a variety of pronouns in different contexts. So another way to practice using pronouns correctly is to use gender neutral language when addressing a group of people. For example, instead of saying ladies and gentlemen, you could say everyone, or guests, or employees, or team members. Point number 4, apologize if you make a mistake. So despite the best efforts, you can and make mistakes with someone's pronouns at some point. So when this happens, it's important to apologize, correct yourself as soon as possible, as this shows that you take the person's gender identity seriously and that you are committed to creating an inclusive environment. When apologizing, be sure to keep it simple and straightforward. You could say something like, "I'm sorry, I meant to say they instead of he," and avoid making a big deal out of it. If you made a mistake, you made a mistake. Okay. Don't be asking for forgiveness. Okay. This can put the person in an uncomfortable position. So in conclusion, using gender pronouns correctly is an important part of creating a more inclusive, welcoming environment to all individuals. By asking for pronouns, using gender neutral language when appropriate, practicing using pronouns correctly, and apologizing if you make a mistake, you can help create a more respectful and accepting community. Now, I hope that's given you a little bit of an insight and some tips and advice for using gender pronouns correctly. If you want to find out more, please reach out to me and I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you on pronouns. But as I say, I will put the link to the Pronoun Dressing Room online resource as well, so you can access that. But in the meantime, I shall wrap up this bonus episode, as I want to keep it short and sweet. And I want to say thank you for listening. And remember, you can go back and listen to this episode and many more episodes in the Say As It Is with Pete podcast series by going to Apple Music, Amazon, Spotify, or Samsung Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts from. And remember, a new episode is dropped every Monday for the Say As It Is series. And again, enjoy your week.